which is the BC-Alberta Trade Investment and Labour Mobility Agreement. You've got the report with Councillor Louie's motion in front of you.
The hearings that we heard the other day, and there was a lot of, I thought, very well-informed and heartfelt and intelligent commentary on the TILMA agreement. And we have a motion that's on the floor from Councillor Louie, and I would like to propose, I think I'm going to call it an amendment. The first revision would be that Council endorse the benefits of the BC-Alberta Trade Investment and Labour Mobility Agreement for BC in promoting lower costs to consumers and businesses, increased labour mobility, increased interprovincial investment, and reduced regulatory burdens. Just to speak to that, we have already in this Council made some moves to do the very things that are being advocated in TILMA, and such as having a standard business license for the Lower Mainland, and motions about applying for a business license in the same way here as we do in every other municipality in the province. And so I think we should acknowledge that we are in fact working in some of the same directions.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Ladner, you have my support. This is a very well-written amendment, and it covers the thoughts that I had after hearing the speakers a week ago Thursday.
I do have concerns with that Council endorsed the benefits of the BC-Alberta Trade Investment Labour Mobility Agreement, TILMA, for BC. And because that's not determined at this point in time, we don't know whether or not it's actually a benefit to this Council, to our citizens, or not.
I think it's important that we heard a lot of negativity about this agreement and a lot of people worrying about it. I don't see that. I think I'm not being critical of people being cautious. That's fine, but I don't think that we need to think that there's some great evil out there that we need to protect ourselves against. People in Alberta are our friends. It's ridiculous that we have any kind of trade barriers between BC and Alberta. And the point of this agreement is to get rid of those barriers and make doing business between the two provinces much easier. That's a good thing. The other big piece of it is so that there's labour mobility, so that people can move back and forth. And you'll see if you read the schedules, there's long descriptions about if you're an acupuncturist, you have to do this, and if you're a social worker, you have to do that, and all of those things. Those are extremely useful. We should not have barriers. If you're a teacher in Alberta, you should be able to come to BC and without much fuss and bother become a teacher in BC. And that's a lot of the point of this agreement. I'm fully in favour of that, and I think this Council can be fully in favour of that too. We do need to, which is why I like the language about being generally in support of the agreement. As I said a minute ago, the Albertans are our friends. Let's work together here. Let's not have barriers.
Now, this is not about friendship. You know, I have family in Alberta, so I don't think Albertans are bad or they're our enemies. I think Albertans are great people. They're Canadians. So I don't know where this argument of they're our enemies or not our friends comes from. It's not about that relationship. It's about whether or not this agreement is going to be positive or negative for the City of Vancouver.
And I have a daughter in Alberta, I have a grandson in Alberta, I have a granddaughter in Alberta, and I like Albertans. They're just fine, and I'm willing to have a lot of friendship with Alberta. It's not a problem, friendly with Albertans. However, I found out in Alberta that just as many people there were as confused about this TILMA as are here, and in fact people didn't really see a need for it. They felt that mobility was working quite well between the two provinces. Nobody really understands why this deal has been cooked up and secreted without any input from cities.
The question really is, TILMA is to solve what problem? We're now negotiating through the Agreement on Internal Trade with all of the provinces across this country. And all of a sudden, from behind closed doors, not presented to the legislature, comes an agreement between two provinces. And it's creating a great deal of consternation across this country about this separatist organization that wants to create a separate trade agreement within itself that doesn't apply to the rest of Canada. Councillor Ladner says he endorsed the benefits. What are those benefits? You're here to represent the interests of the city and the citizens of Vancouver. Your staff has told you that there are going to be administrative costs that are going to come with this agreement. It's going to cost more. Somebody is going to have to pay for those increased costs. Administrative costs, yes, but also the risk of legal costs and the risk of fines. And yet there will be no revenue that will come to the city of Vancouver or any other municipality as a consequence of this agreement. I think the fact that the provincial government has not even deigned to put this into the legislature is an indication of the fact that they don't want this agreement to be seen in the light of day, which tells me, contrary to what Councillor Anton says, that there is something that is to be hidden here from the light of day. They don't want it to see the light of day because they know full well that all of the issues that are raised here about labor mobility are being addressed at a national table. The issues that we heard from the tradespeople said there are complicated issues in terms of trade mobility and skill set mobilities across different jurisdictions. That is reality. Those are being worked out at a national table. To simply say we're going to allow total mobility, well, I don't know how that's going to work, and I don't think you do either. So to say that we endorse the benefits, nobody who came here to speak to us spoke about the benefits. None of the correspondence that we received spoke about the benefits. And no document that I can see, with the exception of one that I think has been adequately critiqued by Professor Helliwell, says that there are any benefits to be gained by this agreement. This is a bad agreement. We should be saying categorically to the province of British Columbia, you need to consult with the public, you need to consult with municipalities, but fundamentally, this is not in the interest of the communities that we represent. And you've seen 20 jurisdictions have said basically that. So here is Vancouver that is going to be the most impacted by this agreement, that are going to have every single thing that we do to make life better for our citizens subject to potential challenge. Our view corridors, echo density, all of these things, if they're not equal to what there is in Alberta, will be subject to challenge. We will find ourselves in a litigious environment. We will find ourselves with possible fines. I think it's nuts for us to be endorsing the benefits. Tell me what the benefits are. You can't. There aren't any. There are no benefits, there are costs to the city of Vancouver. So you're basically saying we are going to pay the costs for administrative costs, for legal costs, and for possible fines. And we may be able to afford that. Smaller jurisdictions know better. They can't.
Okay, Councillor.
This is a bad agreement, and we should tell the province we want nothing to do with it.
Councillor Ladner.
Well, since we're talking about the benefits, and I did put that in the motion, I know Councillor Louie would like to strike that, but I would like to just give some, I don't know, that Councillor Cadman's imagination is pretty dark if he can't think of any benefits of, for example, labor mobility. We've got severe staff shortages here. If there were better labor mobility between here and Alberta, perhaps the most livable city in the world would attract some much-needed staff to work in our city, and not just for our own purposes, but for all businesses and organizations that are located in the city of Vancouver. And we may indeed get lower prices on some of our goods that we're sourcing for the city if we're opening ourselves up on an even playing field to businesses and suppliers from Alberta. Legal costs, there are no fines can be levied against the cities themselves. The fines would be, if any, are paid by the province, not by the city. And I don't know that we would have to engage in legal costs to deal with the provincial fines.
Councillor Ladner says, we won't pay the fines. You need to read the legislation a little more closely, Councillor Ladner. Those costs can be recovered from the city. Yes. And they will be. The province isn't going to pay for something that is done in our jurisdiction that involves a fine. They're going to take it out of monies that they would otherwise transfer to us and say, we'll settle by taking that fine off of this money that we would normally be paying you. I think what we ought to be saying to the province of British Columbia is, if you're not prepared to debate this in the legislature, if you're not prepared to consult the communities and people to be affected by this, then why should we have it? Why are you going against the rest of Canada that has a process on internal trade and putting up a separate mechanism here that nobody else across this country understands, and in fact nobody in these two provinces understands very well? Why are you doing this? It's not helpful, it's divisive, it's going to cost this city a lot of money. Nobody yet has been able to say why we need TILMA. I don't believe it's about labor mobility. That's being worked out. I don't even believe it's about business capability. That's being worked out. This is about investment. This is about being able to basically do things in this jurisdiction as if you were in Alberta. And that is to the detriment of the quality of life of the citizens of this city. All of the things that this council tries to put in place to make life better in this city will be under attack by those who don't have to comply with those kinds of benefits in Alberta. And make no mistake about this, this is not an attempt to raise the bar and make our standards better. It's an attempt to lower the bar. And so all of the things that we do for quality of life here will be challenged. We will find ourselves in a situation where the things that our citizens have expected from us will our ability to demand certain things of developers. Well, they don't do that in Alberta. Why do we have to have that here? And we will have to make up for any shortfall in revenues that come to us by raising taxes. It will cost this city money. And I think the other thing that is really regrettable about this is it gets us into a position where we are dealing with the ability of a private sector corporation, individual, to be able to challenge the rules that have been put in place by public officials that are elected by the public for the benefit of their citizens. You are abandoning the citizens of Vancouver to a private sector onslaught on their improved quality of life in this city. And I think that's really, really regrettable.
Okay, I will be supporting Councillor Ladner's amendment. I was quite surprised to discover recently that there are more trade barriers between the provinces of our country than there are between the countries of Europe. Europe has gone into something very similar, the European Union, where they have very, very low barriers to trade, mobility of labor and investment. And I don't see the cities of Europe challenging each other's view corridors or charging each other fines. I think that works quite well. What we would have here is the ability to deal with the citizens of Calgary just like we would the citizens of Prince George and Kelowna. Councillor Cadman.
Well, I happen to know something about the European Union, and I happen to know something about the long time that it took to get the trade agreements that now exist within the European Union in place. Nowhere within that jurisdiction is there the right of a private interest to sue a public body. And I'll refer to the document that I gave you all, was prepared by Stephen Schreiben of Sack, Goldblatt, Mitchell, which says TILMA dispute procedures represent a radical departure from Canadian legal norms by according private parties a unilateral right to enforce and claim damages under an interprovincial agreement to which they are not party and under which they have no obligation. A further problem with TILMA dispute regime is that unlike the AIT, it includes no screening mechanism to weed out frivolous, harassing, or unmeritorious complaints. Further on, making multiple complaints or to limit the number of persons who may invoke dispute resolution concerning the same measure. Arbitration rules. TILMA Articles 3 and 5 go beyond NAFTA, Article 1110, in protecting the proprietary interests of investors by allowing compensation for any measure that restricts or impairs their investment. Under NAFTA, the measure must actually be discriminatory or expropriate the investment to be actionable. In other words, to successfully defend a measure under Article 6, a province confronts the same daunting challenge of proving a negative. Namely, there is no other option capable of achieving the objective that would be less restrictive trade, investment, and labor mobility. Well, you can't, prove a negative. It's important to note that TILMA goes much farther than the AIT in ensuring adherence to local governments to trade liberalization policies. I mean, I could go on and on and on. This is not a good agreement. We shouldn't be part of it. We should do what other jurisdictions have done, which is say, when you're prepared to do your due diligence as a province and have full public consultation on this, then we're prepared to discuss our involvement. But you've already heard people in Alberta and British Columbia know very little about this agreement, and by basically accepting to go forward with this, we are stepping off of a cliff, not knowing clearly where the floor is. And it's just wrong. We haven't done due diligence on this thing. We don't even have our own legal opinion on this thing. It's shocking.
Councillor Capri?
No, that's okay.
All in favor of Councillor Ladner's motion?
Separation, please.
A. All in favor of A. All opposed? Opposed. Councillor Deal, Chow, Stevenson, Cadman, and Louie.